Okay, Ty, it's September 1997. What would you guess is the, quote, hottest selling game on any platform in history?
September 97?
September
It's got to
97.
be Final Fantasy 7, right?
What if I told you that, according to Nintendo, it was Star Fox 64?
On any Nintendo platform in
On,
history?
quote,
Because it's not.
any platform in history.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Well, we'll
Sorry,
get to
Nintendo.
that in a moment. But first, how can we claim FunFactor is the hottest selling podcast on any platform in history? What's the angle? We can find it, right?
Yeah, I think we just have to ask Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Can Nintendo declare us the hottest selling, hottest downloaded podcast on any platform in history? I think they can.
I think they can, and everyone should believe them.
It's true. Nintendo never lies.
You've got FunFactor, two old gamers reviewing old video game magazine reviews. I'm Ty Shelter, he's Aidan Moher, and we're two professional writers who grew up loving the video games and video game magazines of the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s. Every episode, we take a critical look back on the games media that, for better and for worse, inspired us to do what we do. First, go to funfactorpod.com and follow the show on your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a rating or review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your media. We'll read the best, kindest, funniest, and most insightful ones on the air in our letters section. And please consider becoming a member of FunFactor Ultra, our premium tiers that unlock ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, and the members-only channels of our Discord, where you get the live streaming link to view this session that we're recording live, again, for our FunFactor Ultra members, that you then see as a VOD on YouTube, that you then get an audio version of free in the feed for listeners. Again, you can get it ad-free by being a FunFactor member. Just go to funfactorpod.com, and I promise you cannot miss the sign-up widget on our homepage. Then help us spread the word. Shout us out on Blue Sky at funfactorpod.com and everywhere else at FunFactorPod.
Okay, so Ty, you and I are the kind of sickos who still have like old game consoles around our house, right? Either hooked up to our TVs, behind us in our podcast setup. You got a Virtual Boy that, as far as I know, still works. You know, maybe some of them are packed away, but they're here, right? We have them. They feel like they've been in our lives forever, but there was a time for each of those consoles when it was like the moment that we cracked open the box, or we saw it for the first time, or we visited our friend's house and had to have one. What's your greatest memory of like that new console smell?
Yeah, I mean, the number one probably has to be the first one I got, NES. I was a year or two behind most of my friends in getting it, but my mom went and got for Christmas, got the triple pack with the zapper and the power pad. So that was very cool. Unlocked a bunch of stuff. My greatest console acquisition memory is still actually Dreamcast launch day. I had said as I was a freshman in college. I just started college like a week before, right? Or like 2 weeks before. And I had money saved up because I'd done lawn mowing for a while. And then I got a job with a local steel company. Like my rich friend, his family's steel company, right? So I had some money saved up and I got on my bike and I got my brand new fake hiking like backpack, you know, the Jan Sport with all the stuff. And I biked from campus to the mall, which I can't remember how many miles. It's like 9 miles. It's like not nothing, right? Biked to the mall, paid with a check for my pre-order, and the Dreamcast didn't exactly fit but the fake hiking backpack had those like straps, right? So I was able to like stuff most of it in and then cinch the straps down, and then I biked my Dreamcast back to the dorms, hooked it up, and just blew everybody's minds. People were like, "What is this? Like, what? How? This is so good.
They couldn't
How
get
is
enough
this
of
even
Sonic Adventure.
possible?" Yes, I was a mini celebrity. Like, people were just coming into my room constantly, be like, "Get a load of this." So yeah, that was definitely an incredible experience.
Yeah, you're a king. You could have bought Final Fantasy VIII that day if you thought you were king. With the Dreamcast. Was it Final
I can't
Fantasy
remember.
VIII?
I was trying to
No,
think.
wait,
I was trying to
that
think
doesn't
because I
match up.
did
Final
Lord
Fantasy-
Ruby, Andrew Blewett's show on Final Fantasy VIII, and I was trying to remember, like, when did I get it? Because it wasn't long after launch, but I don't remember specifically picking it up the same day. So I'm like, when did I get it? I didn't wait long.
Yeah, because they came out around the same time. Did the Dreamcast really come out?
I think it was like literally the same day.
Yeah. In any case, yeah, I mean, like, bringing the console home and being like the person with the console was always kind of magical, and that was definitely my first experience with a lot of consoles. I've told like the story of like getting my Nintendo 64 and my Nintendo DS a couple times. They stand out to me for being like memorable. But I also remember like my friend who was the guy who did always get the consoles first, right? But going to his room with his brand new PlayStation 2, it was like Christmas. And him turning it on, popping in a copy of The Bouncer, and just being enamored, not by The Bouncer, for obvious reasons, but enamored by the little blue LED power light. It just seemed cool. Yes. It was like nothing I'd seen before, right? Like you would see red power lights on a Super Nintendo or whatever, but that blue PlayStation power light was just, I could not get enough of it. But a big one for me too was Wii launch day and waiting in line in like a frigid hallway outside of Walmart to get a Wii. And, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, was like rolling her eyes at me when I got up at 3 a.m. or whatever, crawled out of bed and went to Walmart to line up. But like that anticipation of waiting with like 50 or 75 other people in the middle of the night, you don't know any of them, super cool, but you do by the morning. Cool. And like you're there for a chance to get a Wii. And I did, and it was cool. Like it was fun getting home with it, and setting it up, loading up Raving Rabbids. That wasn't exactly a worthy payoff, but playing Twilight Princess and stuff sure was, and just like being so tired because I'd been up almost all night trying to get in some gaming and enjoy the new console before sort of passing out and just being so happy to have it. And the Wii has gone on to become one of my favorite consoles of all time. And so like that effort and that experience just feels so inextricably tied into, just gaming memories for me. It was the first console I also bought. I had bought like handhelds maybe, but the first console that I had like bought fully for myself, like not a gift from parents, not, not coming, sharing the cost with my brothers or whatever. It was like I just went and I used my money and I bought a Wii, and I love that Wii. It's still hooked up. It's like honestly one of the best entry level like retro gaming devices. You could go to like Value Village, get one for $25, hack it, put a bunch of emulators on there. You get like component output. You can hook it up right to a CRT, get like some pretty good retro emulation on there up through the 16-bit era. So like, yeah, I just love the Wii. It was so good. And that night has a lot to do with why I think I love it so much.
Yeah, no, totally. My attachment to various consoles and how I got them too. Have I told the GameCube story?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's hard to remember what you've told on air and off air as well. But
yeah. All right. So it was the GameCube launch year, and I was in college. I think I might have been taking this semester off and trying to work. I'd started a business assembling computers. College wasn't going super great in terms of like grades. And so I was assembling computers and working part-time and kind of being like, I don't know. And the GameCube was coming out and I was just like, I don't have the money. I can't justify the money. I can't do it, and I had actually taken a job building a couple computers and installing an office LAN at my then girlfriend's now wife's place where she worked, which is also where her older sister worked, at a playground. They like designed and installed playgrounds basically. So it was like a 8-9 person office, and we decided to do it on Black Friday because that gave us kind of like the long weekend to if anything else went wrong, troubleshooting, etc. And so then people would come in Monday morning and the network would be all set up, right? And as I was putting stuff together, I realized or maybe I didn't build any computers for them. They bought 2 new computers. They bought 2 new computers without network cards. So I was like, we need to go get network cards. Okay, great. This office was very near the mall and very near Best Buy and Circuit City, as it then was. But this was Black Friday of what was it, 2002?
Oh yeah, that was peak Black Friday.
Terrible. We drove by Best Buy and it was parked out, beyond parked out. I'm like, nope, never mind. So we went to Circuit City and there's a big radio van out front. And they're like, hey, Circuit City, giving away a GameCube, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I'm just like, get in, get out, right? And Karin, my wife's older sister, had driven me because she had the keys to get into the building. And so I went in, I got my 2 nicks, paid, I'm walking out, and the guy's like, hey, they're drawing, don't you want to enter a free GameCube? And I'm like, okay, fine. So I fill it out, and he's like, hey, we're drawing 4 minutes. Don't you want to stick around for the drawing? And I'm like, no, it's fine. I'm working, but thank you. Okay. We get in the car, we drive, and I'm like, okay, put it on the channel, right? So she puts it on the channel, and he's like, hey, and the winner is, and just that little, I could tell he was tripping over my name. My main character syndrome, this is one of the things that cemented it forever. My main character syndrome, it was just and I'm like, turn it around. He's like, Ty, and I'm like, turn around. And so she turns around. We drive back to Circuit City and they're looping up chords. And I'm like, fucking give me my GameCube. Where's my GameCube? And so oh, yep, cool. It is you. So on launch day, after being like, well, I guess I just miss out on at least this year, launch year for GameCube, maybe this cycle, maybe I don't even get this Nintendo console, maybe I miss a whole generation, maybe gonna be broke forever, nope. I walked away that day with GameCube, 2 Wavebirds, memory card, Wave Race 64, whole setup right there. And I was like, dude, incredible hookup. And and then unboxing it and kind of being like, okay, this is it. This thing's tiny. And what is this handle for? I'd seen the handle. There'd already been handle discourse.
The handle discourse was strong for sure.
Yeah, but I'm like, and it doesn't, okay, it's too tall for here. But then if I put it here, it's it takes up this whole giant space for nothing because it's tiny. What? No, okay, this will hit. And then I pop up the lid and I'm like, okay, well now it's and it was awesome. And me and my buddy playing, Wave Race, we went out and got another controller too very quickly and doing 4-way Wavebird Wave Race on 2 couch, a couch and 2 love seats or whatever was incredible. But yeah, that's probably the best launch day story.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very rarely have I woken up one morning not anticipating getting a new game console and then going to bed.
I actually had that
with
twice.
A new one.
Because the Virtual Boy. Oh. I'd been talking up the Virtual Boy and how bad I wanted a Virtual Boy. And obviously this is a few years earlier. And I didn't have the scratch on launch day. And I was just bummed. And I think my mom had just looked up because I think it was $149, I think, at launch. And I think my mom just kind of went, and I think it was in the fall. It was close to my birthday. And so my mom just left work early, stopped by Toys R Us, grabbed a Virtual Boy, and came home. So my mom comes home from work and is like, hey, check it out, Virtual Boy. I actually remember this. I believe my previous birthday, she had said she got me a dog after years and years of not allowing pets, and then it turned out to be a stuffed dog, and she thought that was funny, and I was like, that's not funny. I'm incredibly mad. And she'd given me other presents, of course, you know, but like she thought that was like a fun gag, and I was not. So I think the Virtual Boy, she was like, okay, next year I gotta like go for broke on the birthday, and so like launch Virtual Boy. So like that was very cool, and setting that thing up, you know, you pull it out and you're how does this go together? Like, what? Okay, and then yeah, that experience was awesome, and as weird as everything else was about that system, it was an incredible unboxing experience. And going, damn, this really is a completely different thing than what we're used to.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So far, mine. And again, I know I'm lucky here. The only thing that broke on mine was this little plastic widget that holds the legs up. I just got one of those off eBay for like $3 that somebody printed, and then I got a new eye shade because the old foam gets gross after 30 years or whatever.
Probably everywhere. I'm gonna have like I think I've said before. I think the only time I ever played a Virtual Boy was in like a Toys R Us. Got to pop my like face in there and probably got like, you know, an eye infection. But I you know, like I did buy that stupid Switch 2 Virtual Boy insert thing, and so that's coming. I think it comes out in February, and so that will be my Virtual Boy unboxing, getting to set up that stand, getting to set up that headset, slot my Switch 2 in there, and you know, play for whatever 43 seconds before I get sick and go, well, that was fun, and then put my $120 peripheral.
I have regrets because I was like, why would I do this thing? I already have a real one, and now they've put out, oh yeah, cool, by the way, we're releasing a bunch of unreleased games that everybody knew were complete and just didn't come out. Also, by the way, it's that was pre-order, it's closed, it's all sold out, you can't buy it. I'm like, okay, what? What are we doing here, guys? Like, what? Why would you not let people pay money for things if they want to?
I did not have the extra money to spend on a Virtual Boy headset, but I bought one anyway because I was like, I'm never going to be able to buy this again, and I need to play Virtual on. Is that what it's called? No, that was the mech game with the 2 sticks.
Yeah.
What's the Telerobo?
Teleroboxer. Yeah.
Telerobo. Okay.
I had that one. That one's quality.
Yeah, that was good. But yeah, I mean, like, I guess my final thoughts too are, you know, getting the unboxing a console is like one experience, but like, there's also that new console smell of just seeing one running for the first time, right? Like trying the Virtual Boy at Toys R Us, but I just remember being like gobsmacked by the Sega Saturn and the Nintendo 64 at Toys R Us. Now, the Sega Saturn, of course, had its stealth launch, but the Nintendo 64, I remember like being in a display at Toys R Us. It might even have been like just running like the attract mode in Super Mario 64. I don't even know if it was playable, but just watching it and being like, holy smokes. It was pretty mesmerizing, and just knowing that like I needed one to the point where I bought Super Mario 64 when the Nintendo 64 came out, without even owning the console. I rented a console from Blockbuster to play my copy of Super Mario 64 before I got a console. And so there, you know, like I feel like you don't get that feel anymore. Like games are just so iterative that like you see the Switch 2 and you're like, oh cool, it's like the Switch but more powerful, or it's PlayStation 5 is PlayStation 4 but fancier and it looks stupid. So it's like it's really hard to like articulate what it meant to see something like the Nintendo 64 running at Toys R Us way back in the day.
All right, it is time to open the cover. If you're not already a member of FunFactor Ultra, getting ad-free episodes, hang tight through the break. When we come back, we will flip through Game Informer number 53 right here on FunFactor. Welcome back to FunFactor, where two old gamers review old video game magazine reviews. Of course, we want you to review us. Do we get a full 5.0 in FunFactor? Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read the best, funniest, kindest, and most entertaining ones on the air.
So Ty, we are looking at Game Informer number 53 today from September of 1997. You can see on the cover, it's the Final Fantasy VII issue, and we'll touch on that a little bit, but we're not actually talking much about Final Fantasy VII today. Maybe later. We've got a page count here of 65. Only 65 pages, which is interesting. In this issue, there are 35 games reviewed. That's like half a game per page. Pretty good. That means like half the magazine is game reviews. But and like for like it actually sort of is, as we'll see through the flip through. There are 7 systems reviewed for the PlayStation, the Nintendo 64, Saturn, PC, and then also the Genesis, SNES, and NES. The major standout here, obviously, is that it's only 65 pages, where other magazines of the time were like easily in the triple digits, and I think EGM was hitting like over 200 at this time. But
yeah,
context is important because Game Informer, being like a loss leader for Funko Land, didn't have ads. It had very few ads, I should say. And so there's probably actually a similar amount of content in this magazine as there is in a 200-page issue of EGM. It's just all content because they didn't really run ads. The content was the ads, more or less.
Yeah.
But it is like, looking at that page count at 65, it was that really stood out to me when I was flipping through this.
Yeah, no, as you said, very, very slim, and the like the content is the ads. I think as we talked at our first Game Informer related episode, sometimes that was a little closer to true than maybe we would have preferred.
It's interesting, even we'll get to this, but even looking at the reviews, the way that they structure their reviews is interesting. We're gonna flip forward to the masthead on page, what is this, page 6. A lot of familiar names here, starting with Andy McNamara, who had a 29-year career in games media before leaving Game Informer like 3 years ago. I think it was like 2022 or so.
Yeah.
To become the Global Senior Director of Integrated Communications for Battlefield at Electronic Arts, which is quite a title.
Yes, that's right.
And kind of following McNamara, there are just 5 editors in this entire magazine. No writers, like no staff writers, no contributing writers, just 5 editors. McNamara as the editor. Then you have senior associate editor Paul Anderson and associate editors Andrew Reiner, who would eventually become editor-in-chief of Game Informer before leaving in 2022, also after nearly 30 years, to join Borderlands developer as Global Creative Executive Officer. Then you have Eric Reppin and John Storm following Reppin. There are no staff writers, no bylines outside of the capsule reviews. It's just a small team of editors who were putting together this magazine every month, which is pretty wild. But I also wonder if
Yeah,
there were,
very
like,
impressive.
Yeah.
You also wonder what?
I just wonder if there were maybe like staff writers or like freelance writers that are uncredited who are writing some of the generic like byline free material, but it's really hard to say. Otherwise, like, that's a lot of work. Of course, we do have the art director. We have some production designers and graphic designers. We have copy editors. There is West Coast correspondent Ryan McDonald. Though I guess that's just somebody who probably lived in LA or wherever, Seattle. But the
that's
core staff
funny.
was just those 5 editors.
Yeah, because that's everything's Eden Prairie, Minnesota, right? So
Yeah.
that's funny because that's the Funko Land headquarters, right? It's not a publishing
Not a media
area. It's
hub.
not New
Yeah.
York. It's not LA. It makes sense that you have to have a freelancer who's actually in LA because all of the stuff. This is when we're starting to ramp up into 97, 98, 99.
Yeah.
We're starting to get the press events are actually big deals.
Mm-hmm.
Any of our ultra members who are in games media at the time, some people have stories from some of this era. That's when you start to see as we creep toward PlayStation 2. PlayStation 2 launch had a
Yeah.
bunch of like big time media events and stuff, and
Yeah.
you either had to send people all the time or you had to already be there, and most magazines were just already there, either in San Francisco or LA.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Game Informer, of course, they're now they spun away from GameStop, and they're still based out in the Midwest. Like they're in somewhere in Minnesota, I think. Which is interesting as well. So, like there is that sort of Midwest contingent, which goes back to like, the EGM days in Illinois. And so it didn't always exist. Like for me, I have this picture of like the oneup.com days of everybody living in San Francisco and that being like the hub of games media. But it wasn't always the case and still isn't exactly the case, which is interesting. I think we're just going to get to the flip through at this point.
All right, then let's do it. It's time for the flip through.
But we're not going to even flip a page because I want to start here with Andy McNamara's letter from the editor for this issue. It's on page 6 and it's called Final Fantasy Rules, which I can agree with. But can you read the opening paragraph there for me, Ty?
How do I know that Final Fantasy rules? I know because I played it. Now, I want you to sit back and think about that for a second. A video game magazine editor playing a video game. Seems obvious, doesn't it? But as crazy as it may seem, there are a lot of video game journalists out there who don't.
So McNamara then sort of namelessly accuses other journalists of, quote, plopping the game in, fiddling around with the first level to, quote, figure out how many polygons it has, and then going on to, like, I guess, write reviews and, quote, misrepresent the game based on their short time with it. Keeping in mind that, like, this issue of Game Informer has 5 editors and reviews of 35 games, McNamara continues by saying, quote, these people may know a thing or two about journalism or how to read a press release and write an article, but they don't really play the games. McNamara then closes by saying, oh yeah, by the way, also we review a lot of games and we can't finish them all, but trust us, we put more time into them. And then our competitors, what is going on here, Ty?
That's fascinating. Yeah, well, and I get that to an extent. Game Informer, obviously smaller crew, and this is a magazine with incredible longevity, and even more than some other magazines had people stay on for years and years and years and years. Like the core editorial team of this team was basically in place 6 months after launch for the next 20 years, right? So they have a lot of credibility that, they worked their brains out to put out content, but guess what? So did all the other magazines. There's the documentary about EGM, and they have all the, we were the gamers, right? They're doing the exact same thing, going, we were sleeping under our desks, we were playing everything as much as we were writing about it. We were writing about it ridiculous amounts, but it was our passion. We were the actual gamers. That's what made us stand out. And then you have Diehard Game Fan, which, as we heard about, was, they were really we're just gamers and we have no idea how to put a magazine together, but gosh darn it, we just love the darn games so much. And is it game players? Are they taking shots at game players?
Like,
it doesn't feel like that could possibly be the game players, that's the button down corporate crew who, load a level or two and just go, whatever.
The only thing that, because if you look at the bios, you can't tell me the Game Fan was made up by journos who were, trying to fill some market hole that they saw and didn't actually like games. You look at the bios, you're telling me Bill Donahue was there for the cashola, and was just there regurgitating press releases. We've talked, and so much of the foundation for this show is the idea that these were young people who loved video games who then created journalism out of that, right? They were gamers, complimentary, who wanted to write about games. The only thing that makes sense to me here is if they're taking a swipe at some of those businessy forward magazines like Next Gen, or what was the other one? Intelligent Gamer. The ones that were trying to be a little bit more serious and grown up maybe like, but I just like, I cannot wrap my head around being like, hey, this industry is full of fakes, we're the only real gamers. Like, it just doesn't, that perception is just wild to me looking back at all these magazines at this time.
Yeah, no, it is weird. And certainly we've seen in magazines of all stripes, from Next Generation to Die Hard Game Plan and everywhere in between, get sent a couple of screenshots from a publisher and go, oh yeah, and this is coming, looks like it's going to be XYZ.
Yeah.
And they're wrong because they're just cold reading it off a couple of screenshots.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of reviews where I go, wow, they didn't really play this at all.
No, not enough, like, to at least understand how to talk about the game or that experience that most people will have with it, right? And that's like maybe a whole other episode, is like, you know, do you have to beat games to be able to review them and stuff? But it's just like, I don't know, like it's just sort of like when you live in glass houses, don't throw stones a little bit, you know, like, and it feels maybe like a little bit of the criticism of like, oh, this is just like a magazine advertisement. It's like a flyer for Funko Land or whatever, maybe was getting to them a little bit. But like, I just don't like, it seems like it's just hard to go after your competitors when there doesn't really seem to be a lot of evidence that there was anything here like to support the idea that they were experienced journalists writing about games that they didn't actually play. Just strange. But
no, that's in a few years they probably have a better case, right? There's more games, there's more game magazines. You know, Ziff Davis buys or launches like 72 more games magazines. And in that EGM documentary, they talk about, you know, later in their era, one of them was like, yeah, I was sitting and like an art director came over to me, or an artist or some layout person was like, held up like a picture of like Guile and somebody from King of Fighters and was like, hey, which one of these is from Street Fighter? And it's like, oh my god, like, what are you doing? Like, who are we employing now? Right? It's just some person who knows art and magazine layout and stuff, and they have no clue about games. So like maybe this makes more sense in 03, but in 1997 this I don't
even think necessarily like if you're really good at magazine layout, like, you know, I don't know, if you're not paid for your opinion, it doesn't, I don't know, maybe, but there's a lot there to unpack. I think you've also mentioned this EGM documentary a few times, and I just want to say this is a joint documentary about sort of the history of Electronic Gaming Monthly from My Life in Gaming and GameSack. You can find it on YouTube.
Yes.
Fabulous. Fantastic. Yes. Friends of the show. Highly recommend everybody watch it. We're going to flip forward just a couple of pages here to page 9. This is the letter section. I like the first letter. Mono question of the month. Readers, will you guys send me a free ? Game Informer's response? No. But what I really want to focus on here is the letter art. The winning envelope here from Ian Etheridge from Long Island City, New York is pretty sweet. It's like a really dramatic rendition of Sagat from Street Fighter. But what I want, Ty, is for you to draw a word picture for our listeners who aren't watching the stream of Dennis Price's letter art that he sent in.
Oh my. Okay. Okay, so we have Smokin' Lara Croft with alternating red. Okay, it's like fuchsia red, fuchsia pink, fuchsia red, smoking in like cartoon things. And then we have Lara Croft, and she's literally doing, you know, the free run from a different angle meme. If you follow any artists on Twitter, that's she's like looking up and to the side. And what's really interesting is that she's standing in kind of a T pose, and in classic young artist fashion, her hands and feet have been cropped out so as not to have to be drawn. And we're focusing here on her torso and face. As she is looking up and away, so are her two breasts, which are also looking up and away to either side of her chin. It's really something, and we've got some very, like, I mean, honestly, nice use of hard inks, like, you know, comic book style, like really going for some like negative space type shading. Definitely reads a lot of X-Men by this belt buckle.
There's some Gen 13
and, like,
in there, I think.
Oh yeah, Gen 13. Yeah, that makes sense. And then we got Dennis Price. We're not quite sure what Dennis means by smoking because this is like The Mask. This would have been right about the time for The Mask, right? I don't understand I don't understand.
Yeah.
We also, wait, there's a disembodied eye also.
I was going to ask
She's
kind
of looking at us.
Yeah.
Maybe. Somebody's looking at us.
Somebody's watching.
The sun is behind her, and then there's just an eye. Yeah. Very interesting.
Incredible stuff. Definitely a vibe. But, like, for real, how sick is Shauna Clark's letter art directly to the left of it?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's
it looks
amazing.
like
Beautiful.
promo art. Is that I don't actually recognize the property. Which anime is that?
I don't know. Plat Labor. I don't have a like strong anime or manga background, but
yeah, it looks kind of like Bubblegum Crisis, but not that.
Yeah,
Maybe
it might be
in space.
Yeah, I don't know.
Macross or something.
I'm not going to speculate because I'll just sound silly. But anyway, like some pretty good art here. The Final Fantasy VII one of oh my gosh, what is his name? Vincent. They call him Victor, which tells you that there were probably still some mistranslations.
That's so funny.
Kicking around. But yeah, you have quote Victor looks styling in his purple jumpsuit, and then you have a pretty good one of Charlie from Street Fighter as well, which looks pretty good. Very good stuff. Next up, on page 10, we have the issue's big feature, a really, really beefy review of Final Fantasy VII. But as I sort of alluded to earlier, as much as I want to talk about it, because I'll always talk about Final Fantasy VII, we're going to hang on to that for an upcoming episode.
That's right.
It's beefy, though. We're gonna like flip through here, and you're gonna see it's beefy because it's followed by like a pretty comprehensive walkthrough and strategy guide for the whole game, culminating after about 10 pages on page 19. I want you to describe, what do you see in the bottom right corner here, Ty?
Damn. There is a spoiler warning up front at the beginning of the thing, and I'm like, are they really gonna spoil? Yup, they sure do.
Oh yeah, and like, there's no avoiding that. If you're flipping through the magazine, like they can put a spoiler warning, right? It's kind of up here, but like, I don't want any spoilers for Final Fantasy VII. Okay, cool. I will just start, just flipping through, and then you just see Dead Earth. Like, that's hardcore. They needed one of those. This needed to be like sealed off, like have a little sticker, and it's like, break in case of emergency or whatever. Pretty wild stuff. But we are going to get back to this review in a later episode. The next page after this feature review strategy guide thing of Final Fantasy VII is the issue's like official feature, which is called Action/Platform Explosion. It's like a brief look at some upcoming action platformers. It honestly wouldn't be more than like a big-ish preview in other mags. It's 3 pages. It leads off with like bangers like Pandemonium 2, Rascal, The Wild 9, and Pitfall: Beyond the Jungle. While has-beens like Crash Bandicoot 2, like Mischief Makers, like Yoshi's Island 64, like Klonoa and Banjo-Kazooie are sort of like relegated to the second and third pages, which is always interesting to look at. Game Informer news called GI News follows. And this here is where we find a news beat in which Nintendo declares Star Fox 64 the, quote, hottest video game on any platform in history. Can you read this excerpt for me, Ty?
Yeah, okay, so this is what we talked about up at the top. Nintendo of America announced that Star Fox 64 became the, quote, hottest video game on any platform in history when it sold over 300,000 copies in the first 5 days of its US launch back on June 30th. Parenthetical, we presume Nintendo is referring to US sales only. Star Fox 64 surpassed two other wildly popular N64 titles, Super Mario 64 and Mario Kart 64, both of which went on to sell well over 1 million copies. While Nintendo can boast of Star Fox 64's history-making event in the US, it pales in comparison to the Final Fantasy VII sales in Japan. 7 released last January and sold over 2 million copies in the game's first 3 days of release. Just a little history lesson for those who watch gaming in more than one hemisphere.
Incredible stuff. Like, can you make sense of how Nintendo would have got to, quote, hottest video game on any platform in history? Because even 300,000, there's no way that Star Fox 64 sold the most units in 5 days in the US across, like, you think?
No, that doesn't even begin to make sense to me.
No.
Like, this is the era of launch days becoming a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because back in the NES days, it was like stuff hit, even if there was an intended street date, which there often wasn't, retailers would put them out as soon as they got them. And, you could there are games that you could buy weeks ahead of time in certain spots. And sometimes they did it on purpose, right? Like they previewed the game in like New York, this NES in New York and LA for months before they went national. And so like history is very, if you listen to any old podcasts or any kind of outlet that covers gaming history, they'll tell you when did Nintendo games launch, who knows, right?
Yeah.
And so like there's build up in anticipation, and that means, okay, cool, get it. And like pre-orders are becoming a thing now. There's pre-order swag. So like how many pre-orders is starting to matter. Publishers and retailers are both finding out that, hey, this pre-order thing makes it so much easier because we don't buy too much. We're not stuck with excess inventory. We don't buy way too little and miss out on a bunch of sales. So they're really encouraging the pre-ordering. So I can see where games being released in this period are selling first, hitting first 2, 3, 4 day sales records. But this, 300,000 is, the pre-orders alone for Final Fantasy VII had to have been more than that.
Yeah.
And I get that this is September 97, so we're talking before then. But there are plenty of big games that came out in this time where I just don't buy it. Like, who had a Nintendo 64? The N64 was a big launch. It must have. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's a weird one. They were pulling some levers, I think. Also on this page, we have top 10 video game conspiracies, which clearly are all just made up. We have some here. Sega owns Sony, Nintendo owns Sega, and Pillsbury owns Nintendo. Crash Bandicoot is actually the offspring of Fox McCloud and Samus. Hedgehogs are brown, not blue. And then at number 1, we have some beautiful casual transphobia. Lara Croft is a man with 3 exclamation marks, which just says a lot, I think, about even a magazine like this, which doesn't lean into a lot of the, juvenile humor that was popular at the time. Even then was sort of leaning into just absurd transphobia in a casual way, in a lazy way that I think tells you so much about what was going on during this time, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's par for the course in a lot of humor, 90s humor, 90s shows. It's wild if you go back, and even into the early and mid 2000s, there's still stuff that's like, oh yeah, this is the easiest layup in the world, is just casual transphobia. It's one of the few marks against The Wedding Singer, which I always called the perfect first date movie, because I took my first real girlfriend to go see it, and we got married. And we had a wonderful time at The Wedding Singer. It was very, very funny. But oh yeah, there is a trans joke where the joke is just, check it out, this person is trans, lol. And it's kind of like, okay.
It was like the Ace Ventura, just like, completely like,
okay, the plot of the movie hinging on transphobia,
its whole like execution, because it's just like, oh hey, wait, any case, I'm glad we've moved on since then, but I think we still have a lot of work to do. We're gonna round out the news section here with list of analog compatible games for the PlayStation, Nintendo 64's game lineup, with a fascinating screenshot of Zelda 64. Who doesn't want to play that game? Then we have Tiger's new handheld unit, the game.com, which was as bad as it looks. And then, some updates about Earthworm Jim in 3D. Sonic returning to the Saturn with Sonic R2 series that, as we know, would do very well during the next console generation. A very iconic Final Fantasy VII ad. And then we get into the previews and reviews section. So Game Informer just mashes previews and reviews into like one big messy section that makes up like the majority of the magazine. Here we've got a Banjo-Kazooie preview. I can tell it's a preview because it doesn't have a score, and it says preview in the top left corner there in white text on yellow, which is very readable. It declares Banjo-Kazooie, Mario meets Chuck E. Cheese, which, okay, I can buy it. I can buy it. And then we're followed up by, we have like a preview, I guess, of Mace, the Darkness, which was a weird fantasy fighting game, Tetrisphere, which is a underrated version of Tetris. We have a GoldenEye review, which we're going to get back to. But then we have a preview of Mischief Makers, which is criminally underrated for the Nintendo 64. A treasure kind of platformer beat 'em up side scroller. Very good. Treasures of the Deep for the PlayStation. Also a hidden banger, along with Colony Wars. And then we get to Tomb Raider 2. And so we have like, that's a lot of good games in a row.
Yeah.
And not even like the heavy hitters like Tomb Raider 2 or like Banjo-Kazooie. These are, just good games at that time. Colony Wars, Treasure of the Deep were like games that for me on console were justifying the move to 3D because they were doing things and creating gameplay experiences that didn't necessarily exist in sort of the 16-bit era. And as somebody, as I've said a lot, was skeptical of the move to 3D, games like Colony Wars and Treasures of the Deep were definitely like compelling to me for that reason. Treasure of the Deep here gets straight 9s, well deserved. Colony Wars is just a preview. We're gonna skip past the Tomb Raider 2 preview.
Aidan,
yeah.
Before we go any further,
Okay.
I want to offset that. Can you go way back to the news bit? Page 31 in the page 31. Can you zoom in on that Earthworm Jim leaves shiny? Currently in development for Sony PlayStation, PC, and Nintendo 64, but the big surprise is Shiny Entertainment won't be developing it. Instead, Interplay is handed over to a fledgling Scottish company, VIS. Can you zoom in on those screenshots? This, I cannot say how terrible this looks, especially the lower screenshot.
Yeah.
It is using a checkerboard like bitmap that I think is being like
it's like
stretched.
the PNG
I don't know what
background.
the original resolution. It's like what?
The PNG background, when you snag fake PNGs off
it's
Google,
and it's so blurry,
Yeah.
it's so stretched, and in this isometric view, it's literally generating an optical illusion for me where it's jittering. Like my eyes see the gray, but it's like it's jittering.
Amazing.
And then there's the Earthworm Jim model on top of it at a completely different resolution. This looks so janky and terrible.
And like Earthworm Jim, like for all its flaws, like it had the juice, right? In terms of just like owning its vibe, owning its look. Whether you like it or not, like Earthworm Jim was a thing, and it looked cool and it looked so distinct. This looks like you could put Bubsy in these shots or Blasto in these shots, and like I wouldn't blink, right? Like, because they all sort of look the same. And like I think there's a big machine like slicing bread in the second screenshot there, I guess, but like that's not what like there's nothing here, no visual like language that tells me that this is Earthworm Jim besides Earthworm Jim being there.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And it actually there is a little bit of Blasto where okay, cool, here's one wacky element.
Yeah.
And all of the rest of this
It's
is
like
just
the most generic
a desert
stuff you can
of
think
generic and terrible looking, in this case, assets. It's so bad.
In case you're wondering
It's
why
awful
Earthworm
looking.
Jim died after the PlayStation
Yeah.
era. Yeah.
All
Lamentable.
right. So anyway,
Okay.
back to the
So
big run of really great games.
and then
that
look at what we
justify
got.
3D.
Back-to-back previews for Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy
wow.
Tactics. Like, man, like these are
Wow.
two of the best games of all time. Were you looking forward to these games? Like, are these games that you followed closely before release, or did they kind of surprise you? What was your experience with these two?
Yeah. With these two specifically, Tactics, I was all over. Metal Gear Solid looked really good, but I don't know why I didn't buy it. There's maybe too many other things at the same time, right? But I spent, oh my gosh, I sunk a ton of hours into Tactics. I was itching for it. It looked incredible. I got it. It played incredible. And then Metal Gear Solid, I feel like one of my friends got it right off the bat and either downplayed it, like they didn't like it, and maybe also spoiled me on something. I just remember feeling like, okay, that's Metal Gear Solid, and they're like, yeah, it's like, I don't know, like, here's a big spoiler. I don't know, I'm not loving it. I'm like, oh, okay, great. And even though I read all these magazines and stuff, that still has a big, okay, here I'm watching it play. I watched it for like 30 seconds and my friend was like, yeah, this isn't that great, or I didn't like it for XYZ stupid reason. You go, okay. And then I never bought it, and I still actually haven't played any of the Metal Gear Solid games.
Really?
Because then it was like, well, because I'm like with books and stuff, right? I'm like a completionist, right? So it's like, what am I going to do? Play the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake or whatever that came out, never having played a Metal Gear Solid game? Like, I'm not going to do that. That's not me. That's not how I consume media.
Right,
absolutely not. Yeah. I will sit here and, someday we'll decide, okay, now it's time, and then play through the whole series or whatever.
Yeah. Fair. Well, Metal Gear Solid's good. I was replaying it not too long ago, and it holds up really well. But it was a unique experience, right? And for me, it was one of those ones that I think a friend had or got. Like, I don't even know how I found out about it, because I did not know about Metal Gear, like, on the NES. That was not a series that I really had any experience with. And that was one that I, watched and played with it at a friend's house. And then, like, once they were done, I was like, I need this.
I rented that one.
Yeah.
And I think maybe because I was so young, it was so baffling.
Yeah.
Right.
I never even had that.
Like
I wouldn't even have been able to tell you Metal Gear Solid was like, it's not the start of a new series when I played it. Right. But I do remember, like, eventually getting a copy. And I don't own a PlayStation copy of it, except out of like the collection that came with the PS2 version. So I must have borrowed my friend's. And I remember being home sick from school one day and just playing through the entire game in one sitting. Not my first playthrough, but that's one of my, like, big gaming memories. And Tactics, of course, I've talked about how my friend's stepbrother brought home a bootleg Japanese copy from Thailand and, like, played through the whole thing before its release, and that was
mind-boggling.
That was just a great, like, both of these are just such strong memories of what gaming was like at that time. Next up, we have a 2-pager for your favorite, quote, bloody 3D fighting adventure. It's Nightmare Creatures.
Hey.
So they say
this one
here
keeps showing up.
And, like, I think we were joking about Nightmare Creatures a few episodes ago about, like, what is it? But, they kind of position it as like a fantasy bloody Tomb Raider game. But, quote from this preview, it says, but to say this game is a Tomb Raider ripoff wouldn't do it justice. It seems like they kind of took the 3D adventure formula and added a combo-based fighting system to it, which, as history tells us, probably didn't work very well, because nobody remembers Nightmare Creatures, even two guys who do a retro gaming magazine podcast. So, I bet that felt great to play. You can play as a weird guy named Ignatius. You can also play as, quote, a beautiful woman named Nadia, which I need to point out is Aidan spelled backwards. Aidan, Nadia. And so you know who I would have chosen. based
course.
on name alone at the time.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating because this is really, we'd call this character action, right? We'd call this a Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
Probably. But the aesthetics are so Bloodborne that it's impossible not to look at this and go, these guys were cooking. Like, I don't
Yeah.
if this played well at all, if this felt even the littlest bit good, it would have taken over. And it's funny because we
Just
talked
like
about this now. It
Kingsfield
keeps
did, right?
popping up in ads. The ad coverage was really good. All the magazines are reviewing it. Nobody's giving it awards. Nobody's talking about it like this is so great, but it's getting coverage. And it's surprising to me that it didn't get any traction in at least like the in-person at school discourse, because it was certainly unique-ish, right? And the idea of calling it a Tomb Raider ripoff just because it's a third-person action game is like, what? Like, it's not ripping off Tomb Raider just to like run around in a big level and do action stuff.
But I mean, for a lot of people, it was, right? Like Tomb Raider, like Metal Gear Solid, was sort of like a lot of people's first experience with 3D environments that weren't like platformers, like Mario 64. But I mean, I'm just baffled that a game with a character design like this guy, Ignatius, the male playable character, I assume, didn't take off with the youths. But as we know, it did take a very long time for FromSoft to kind of hit it big. So maybe they were just ahead of their time. Maybe we need the Nightmare Creatures reboot. We're going to skip past a few more previews for some also pretty good games. Or okay games. Masters of Terrascasi. I played the demo of. I liked it. I thought it was cool. Red Ashfall. I don't know. IQ was cool. Puzzle game with cubes. The Lost World Jurassic Park, which we reviewed, they gave it a 5.5, though it did get high marks for graphics. Amazingly, Andy McNamara gave it a 1 out of 10 for entertainment, which is wild. Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero was kind of a cool game. NFL Game Day 98, I don't know, you'll probably tell me it was good. And then we have a review for the funniest RPG ever, quote unquote. Not Earthbound, but Albert Odyssey, which was a kind of action RPG. Not even an action RPG. It was like an RPG on the Saturn, but from Working Designs. And notably, I want to point out that this was a Victor Ireland special. Like, this was a Working Designs game. There's a lot of revisionist history about people's perceptions of Working Designs at the time. People don't really care for them now. But this is like proof that, you know, that humor worked in some capacity, you know, and wasn't like criticized constantly or, you know, negatively viewed at the time. Like, they thought it was funny. Albert Odyssey, pretty decent game. The reviews weren't great, but there it is. Funniest RPG ever.
Yeah, this the only thing that really sells me here, at the beginning of the game, all seems normal till you walk into a house and talk to someone for a while about current events and items relevant to the plot. Suddenly they say, "Hey, what are you doing in my house?" I'm like, okay, great. Pointing that out, great bit, good stuff. From this point on, jokes run rampant throughout the game. In Albert Odyssey, you'll hear wisecracks about sexism, wheat germ, debauchery, old age, political correctness, yo mama, trite dialogue, health food, general stupidity, violations of privacy, good, evil, beastmen, birdmen, lizardmen, pyramids. And like, I'm kind of like, okay, are we going to hear jokes about sexism, debauchery, political correctness, yo mama, and trite dialogue, or are we going to hear sexism, jokes, debauchery, yo mama, and trite dialogue? Because it sounds like the latter. But
you know which one it is.
This is just yes, but it's the novelty of putting all this stuff in these characters' mouths that didn't exist, and taking a otherwise mostly unremarkable JRPG and giving it this treatment. Obviously had an audience, but the edgelordy for edgelord's sake stuff is just ramping up here, and we're all sick to death of it. But it's there's definitely plenty of defenders at the time, and I'm gonna say there are also like, part of it is this is still the greats of the genre. We're talking about PS1, we're talking about Suikoden, we're talking about Final Fantasy VII, right? Even if you don't like the anachronisms or pop culture references or whatever, just having an RPG be written in literally fluent English
Yes.
versus, miserably translated and localized. And again, as we've talked about a zillion times, under terrible conditions, et cetera, et cetera. But like, not having a student do it with an Excel spreadsheet of here's every line in the game in Japanese in column A.
They would have loved an Excel spreadsheet. We're talking like flat text files.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, okay, cool. Put every translation in column B, right? So like this is just enough of a novelty where it's been written clearly by someone who speaks English fluently,
and
let alone the novelty of all this other stuff.
It's hard to oversell that. Like this is, like you have jokes, you can see them in the screenshots here. Like, yo mama so ugly she looks out the window and gets arrested for mooning. But like, like this is the era where like Final Fantasy VII isn't even out. It's
right.
Localization is awful. And so there is, like, is it unfortunate that, Victor Ireland and Working Designs used their efforts to write dialogue like, quote, they maintain low-fat, high-protein diets and sprinkle wheat germ on everything? Like, yeah, like, it would have been great if they had applied that to more, like, nuanced and, like, interesting localizations. But the fact that you could load up this Japanese game and get something that, like you said, read in proper English, even if the English and the content itself was bad, it was remarkable at that time. And it worked for some people. Like all of the dialogue here, right, are jokes. And so they thought it was funny. It worked for whoever. I don't know who wrote this because, again, the main sections are not bylined. But it worked for some of these people here. On the next page, we have the PC section. So it's one page, covers PC games. We've got a review of XCOM Apocalypse. These are all by Eric. The PC Jedi gave XCOM a 9.5 out of 10, which is good. It's a good game. And then a bit of news down at the bottom with some news that Blizzard, quote, entered the science fiction real-time fray with StarCraft, which was cool. We also have mention of, quote, first-person shooters, and then in brackets, Doom clones, which is interesting because that feels like a nice introduction to what, the genre would eventually be called. They were just Doom clones for a lot of the time, but by 1997, we started to get first-person shooters, which of course has stuck around. Talking here as well about, being impressed by Unreal. And of course, Unreal would go on to become something very big.
I remember this section from last time, and Eric, the PC Jedi, these capsule releases, I remember them being entertaining before, and they're entertaining again. Dragon Dice from Interplay 7.5. If you're a huge fan of the dice game by TSR, you might as well check this game out. I never was, and to my knowledge, not many people were. Jiminy Christmas. And then Spacebar, this is actually, I pulled this from Segasoft, which I forgot Segasoft was a thing, Sega making PC games. The Spacebar, which is a pun I always appreciate every time. It's a point and clicker with some good ideas. I despise the entire genre, so it's hard to be fair, but I've played way too many of these things this year. 6.75. That's just so funny to me.
That sounds to me like somebody who puts playing games ahead of being a journalist, right? Like that's definitely somebody who put enough time into Spacebar and Dragon Dice to write objective content about them, right? Compared to the guys at EGM or the people at GameFan. You can just feel the quality. We're gonna wrap things up here with some more reviews and previews mixed together in the at a glance section. So we have here
so funny.
They're all just mixed together. You can tell it's a review if it has a score. You can tell it's a preview if it doesn't have a score. So we've got a review for Warcraft 2 The Dark Saga, which was Warcraft 2 on PlayStation and Saturn, gets 7.75. We have a preview of Saga Frontier, a game that it's Saga Frontier. But my favorite part of this, and the reason I wanted to call it out, is at the bottom here we have, wrapping up the little preview, quote, While this game won't be coming stateside until early 98, it will definitely give RPGers something to dream about after they finish Final Fantasy VII. Saga Frontier, being the first big Square release after Final Fantasy VII, remains the funniest thing of all time. And I love that Game Informer, along with every other magazine, was trying to scramble to figure out, like, what's the next big RPG, and was, like, pumping up Saga Frontier, which is, like, the opposite kind of RPG of Final Fantasy VII. And, like, I was one of them that bought Saga Frontier and didn't know what it was, expected Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger or whatever, and, like, did not understand what was going on. And I love the fact that they're, like, you know, pumping its tires here. It's hilarious.
I also double love that Final Fantasy VIII only came out a year after 7.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, what are we I played Final Fantasy VIII, or I played Final Fantasy VII. What am I gonna do? How will I find RPGs?
I know, but man, I was finishing RPGs pretty quick at this time. So, you know, now it doesn't sound like very long, but at that time, it felt like forever. We've got Jimmy Johnson's VR Football 98, which you're probably going to tell me is good. And what else do we have here? Hercules for the PlayStation gets 6.75. Marvel Superheroes with an 8.75 for the Saturn. Surprised that didn't get a bigger review in this issue, because it was a pretty big game in the arcades. We have the standard secret access cheats and codes and tricks and strategies section, which is, you know, the big money maker guides. They still drive the games media industry, such as it is. People like to cheat. They like to make their games easier. They do have one of my favorite, it's a user submitted, tricks for Wild Arms. So you can, like, max out your items or any time in the game if you want to, which makes replays pretty fun, because you just max out all of your you get these little, like, apples and stuff that you can use to upgrade your stats. So you just make all your characters really strong. It's kind of like New Game Plus. It's fun. Then we wrap up the magazine. This is the end. Here, Classic Game Informer, which is a look back at, quote, gaming from the past to the present. It's a review section with some old games in it. We've got, you know, stone cold classics like Battletoads. We've got Subterranea for the Sega Genesis. We've got Aerobiz Supersonic, which was like an airport management sim. And then we've also got Haunting, starring Poltergeist, which, you know, everyone obviously poured many hours into as kids. But what I also noticed, and what jumped out at me, is that for each of these, we also have an availability ranking. And so Subterranea, uncommon. Haunting, starring Poltergeist, uncommon. Battletoads, common. Aerobiz Supersonic, rare. And so you're seeing sort of the beginning of you know, collector's market for these retro games, and saying, like, hey, like, keep an eye out for these ones. If you see Aerobiz Supersonic, you might want to pick it up. Which I do think is interesting. You know, appealing to those people who were maybe a bit older and got into games, you know, in the 70s or early 80s, with all of the, you know, like, before the Nintendo stuff, right? And they might be looking at sort of like starting to build out their collection of Super Nintendo and Genesis and NES games, recognizing that, like, hey, we're into the next generation of consoles. This stuff's going to start disappearing.
Yeah, no, for sure. Also uncovering, I just love, we get there is no peace in sight as civil war continues in Beijing. Like, gotta manage the flights in and out of Beijing as the civil war, you know, is what, like I was gonna say a few years after Tiananmen Square. Okay, it's like 7 years, 8 years after that. Okay. But like, I wonder how geopolitical. I mean, this is Koei, right? So this is, you've got your Nobunaga's ambition. You've got like, these are the strategy gamers, and they're like, hey, wait a minute, like, let's just do running an airline and put all the geopolitics and everything in it. Also, fascinating, because those, I mean, that is real. Like, all of a sudden you can't fly to this country, or you can't fly through this country, the no-fly zone. Like, that is a real part of managing airlines.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we've got an ad There are some ads in Game Informer. Quote, dirty games are no fun. Clean them up. I think that's supposed to be a joke. Like, dirty, like naughty. But it doesn't really land. It's pretty awkward. But that's it. That's it for the flip through. With only 65 pages, we were able to kind of look at the whole magazine. But now it's time to get to our review of GoldenEye for the Nintendo 64 after the break.
That's right. We are going to take a quick break, pay some bills. If you are not a FunFactor Ultra member, watching this live on stream as we record it, or enjoying it ad-free after the fact, stick around. Stick around. We will be back to get through Game Informer's review of GoldenEye 007 right here on FunFactor. We're having 5 stars out of 5 stars worth of fun today. And folks, if you are too, leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your media. Leave a comment here on YouTube, and we will read the best, funniest, and kindest, most entertaining ones on the air. But now it is time for us to do the thing we do. We review the review.
Okay, so as I've discussed like a fair bit in this episode already, Game Informer scatters their reviews throughout the magazine, mixes them in with previews, which kind of look the same, except visually, like the reviews will have scores, the previews won't. It's honestly a bit of a mess, because then you mix in like feature reviews like this, which have a lot of space. Then you have capsule reviews, and you have like micro one-liners, and there is no consistent like structure to any of these reviews. In fact, some of them have 3 reviewers on the game, some of them have 1, some of them have 4, and there's no, from what I could tell, real consistency. Each of the major reviews, which is what GoldenEye got, gets a non-bylined main section. That's like a big, what you would look at as like a typical review in some other magazines. But these are a little more descriptive, a little less opinionated, because they are then followed up by 3 like capsule reviews from different people. And so on GoldenEye 64, we have Reiner, the Raging Gamer, we have Andy, the Game Hombre, and Paul, the Game Professor, giving scores, and then also a little write-up. In these personal reviews, games are rated out of 10 with half points and quarter points for the final score. And scored on concept, graphics, sound, playability, and entertainment, which is otherwise known as FunFactor. There's no like manifesto about what these categories mean. They're fairly self-explanatory. There's also no explanation of if there's any weighting going on, if any of these, like are more valuable or less valuable than others.
Yeah.
And then the overall score does sort of seem to be like an average of the above scores. That works out for Reiner and Andy's. Paul's actually, if you average it out, should have been an 8 overall. And so it's kind of hard to say what mathematical formula was going on. Like I broke out my Cray supercomputer, did some physics bending math, and they worked out except for Paul's. So I don't know if that was just a mistake. I don't know if it was like gut feeling and they just, Reiner and Andy happened to get the average of their scores. But the bottom line also seems to be an average of the 3 overall scores. So again, not a lot of like minutia, not a lot to go on about how these scores are calculated, really what they mean. So the juice is really in the write-ups from the 3 different reviewers here. It's a little fly by the seat of your pants, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we've seen this format. I think we saw it before when we covered a Game Informer episode. God. Okay, well, covered a Game Informer issue on a previous episode. I like I'm sure this was probably one of the editors that wrote the byline, the non-bylined main section, right? And it is a good write-up of the mechanics of it. What's really fascinating is both the main review text and 2 of the 3 byline capsules mention Turok. like this whole thing we've got in the middle here. The appearance of GoldenEye is very similar to Turok, from the way your character moves with his hands and weapons, swaying to a visit the jungles of Cuba. However, the control is much different and a tad confusing, simply because you'll have to command more than just standard weapons and movement controls. And then Reiner, the Raging Gamer, starts with take Turok, add James Bond, and you have the general idea of GoldenEye 007. And Andy, the game hombre, da-da-da-da-da. This game has its drawbacks, though. First of all, it's not as good as Turok. And so it's very strange in a world where we have Doom, and the PC gamer is using his one-page section to go, okay, yeah, I was at E3. Here come the Doom clones, right? Every company's got a Doom clone. Here they all come, right? And then they're reviewing Turok, or they're reviewing GoldenEye, and the Turok is the boss baby here. Or they're getting a lot of Turok vibes from this. It's just like, okay, it's a first-person shooter on N64. So, like, I get that that's the natural comparison, and it is enlightening to go, yeah, the gameplay doesn't feel as good as Turok, right? It says it's not as good, just like overall, the game isn't as good as Turok. It feels like what Andy means to say is that, like, the moment-to-moment gameplay is not as good, or the feel is not as good, right? Because of the other things that Andy says are really complementary. So it is interesting that, like, they can't avoid comparing it directly to the only other first-person shooter on the platform. And then they also complain that too many games are of the first-person perspective out of the N64's library. Like, oh man, there are so few N64 games. Why do we gotta have 2 first-person games? Which feels wild to me. Like, what? How is that the complaint? Like, I get if you're like, oh, we don't have any RPGs, or we don't have any racing games, or we have too many, of a given genre. But to go, oh, well, there's too many first-person games is such a weird complaint to me.
It is weird, and in hindsight, it's strange as well. I think that, like, context is just so interesting with something like GoldenEye, and you bring up Turok and how much they talk about Turok. I really liked Turok. I didn't really care all that much for GoldenEye. I played a lot of it, a lot of multiplayer with my friends. In high school, like, a lot. And I owned it. I think it was my cart that we were playing on. And I got through most or all of the main storyline, but, like, I had been playing first-person shooters for a long time. And so GoldenEye was nothing new to me. It wasn't novel, outside of playing a first-person shooter on a console that felt okay. This wasn't Doom on the PlayStation or the Super Nintendo, but I had been playing Doom for years at this point, and I had been playing multiplayer, like deathmatch Doom, for a long time. And, I think a lot of GoldenEye, I think it succeeded more on, like, being high with your friends in front of the TV and, like, the novelty of a semi-passable FPS experience on consoles, more than it did on actual merits. And so much of that leans on the multiplayer, right? Like, that is what people remember GoldenEye for. It wasn't the main campaign, which was fine. It was okay. But it was the multiplayer that, like, really cemented its legacy. And I actually find it really interesting that in this review, multiplayer is not mentioned very much. There's, like, a single throwaway line right at the end of the, like, non-bylined big review, like 250 words in. It says, quote, as an added bonus, up to 4 players can compete in an insane deathmatch featuring the Golden Gun. And so, like, it's positioning multiplayer as a bonus, just like something alongside the campaign, which really sort of, like, fails to recognize how important multiplayer was to this game. You do see a little bit in Paul, the game professor.
I was going to say, Paul has one line. I really had the best time with the enormous options in the multiplayer games, which is funny because it is an enormous layer of options. It's very weird that the main thing is like, oh yeah, and by the way, 4 players can complete multiplayer with Golden Gun. But, like, Golden Gun was one of many different deathmatch options that it had. That's
and
not
that
the
customization
only one.
was so important, right? Like, we would play, like, proximity mines only a lot. which was insane.
Yeah.
Right? And like the way that it allowed people to cater their experience to their play group, or, you know, just to like shake things up, was really what allowed the game, I think, to find its legacy the way that it did, more than any of its actual like gameplay ideas or mechanics. It was like, hey, let's let people fiddle around.
Yeah, for sure. And I've done my GoldenEye rant on here, I think once before, and I know I went deep into it for the Flashback 64 podcast when they had us do review Nintendo Power's 1997 year-end review, where they gave literally every award to almost every award to GoldenEye. And GoldenEye was nominated for everything: Best RPG GoldenEye, Best Sports Game GoldenEye. It was unbelievable. But you know, it was exactly that. And we've talked again before, where I didn't have a PC yet. I think in 97, I think 98 is when I got my first own PC. I think my mom had a PC in 97. We got online in 98, and I got my first PC from my uncle in 98 and started upgrading it to try and get it to play games, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember getting a machine that could play Quake 2 was super, super high on my list. And then I went to college and bought a gaming PC, you know, immediately. And my dorm was hooked up with 10 megabit Ethernet. It was the first dorm on campus. It was done the summer
10
before
megabit.
I arrived on campus.
not
10
gigabit.
megabit. Not gigabit, megabit. It is 10/100, and that was still way faster.
Yeah.
Because it was right to MSU's internet like backbone.
Yeah.
So my download rates were limited by how fast servers could spit it at me.
Right.
You know, Napster. I was
up to
just
10
everything.
megabits per second.
Yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, but meanwhile, there was GoldenEye. There was a guy who was like a super senior. It was like his 5th or 6th year at Michigan State, and he wasn't an RA because he didn't have responsibility, but it was like his room at the end of the dorm, and he'd had enough money where he had been accumulating stuff. So he had a 36-inch CRT, and he had, you know, all the gaming systems. He had a DVD player. Watching The Matrix on DVD was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, 30 people cramming into a room to watch The Matrix on DVD. And had, you know, N64, people were like GoldenEye. And I remember, you know, I'm literally playing like the Quake 3 demo on my gaming PC at one point. And it was like, Ty, come play GoldenEye. And I'm like, what is wrong with you guys?
Yeah. That's where I was at too. Yeah.
I get why people like it, but it's just literally that, you didn't have LAN parties. You didn't have any other network gaming.
Yeah.
You don't know
and
how
like,
much this
when
rocks.
I think back to it, the friends of mine who were most into GoldenEye were the ones that did not have PCs. Like, did not get into to gaming on computer and have access to that stuff. Like, you know, I was downloading Doom shareware, you know, and it would take 12 hours to download the, like, whatever, 1.2 megabyte file. And I would play that, and, you know, we would be connecting over, like, whatever, like, modems to play deathmatch, and it was great, and it was so much fun. That was years before this. So, like I said, it wasn't novel.
And meanwhile,
to me.
we're all on a LAN. I'm like, you guys, just get on your all got brand new computers to go to college with, just about. Jump on and just start playing actual real deathmatch with like 0 ping, you know, like 12 ping. It's incredible. It's so much better than 4 frames per second with no textures, all looking at the same TV.
Now, there is totally something about like the physicality of like bunching up on a couch together, you know?
Yeah.
Fucking around and like, you know, watching each other's screens and like, you know.
Yeah.
Couch co-op is a thing. And I do think that it was an invaluable part of the Nintendo 64 experience. And that makes up for a lot of it. And that's why I did play a lot of GoldenEye, right? Like a lot of GoldenEye. Right, despite the fact that like I was like, hey, like there's Quake and there's Unreal, or I could go play Doom 2 WADs. Like there were so many other things I could do with my time, but friends were playing GoldenEye. And so, you know, I was sitting on the couch with them playing GoldenEye and laughing and having fun. And it was almost more of an excuse than it was like, you know, an excuse to hang out, a reason to hang out.
Yes.
More than it was about like the actual experience within the game, I think. And like
GoldenEye is friendslop.
Yeah, kind of.
GoldenEye is friendslop.
Like,
for
honestly,
clipping this.
kind of.
This
Yeah,
is-
like
yeah,
the whole Nintendo 64 was, right? Like Bomberman 64 or like,
yeah.
you know, anything, Mario Kart 64. Like, it was just about hanging out. It was friendslop before its time. Like millennial friendslop for sure. I think that's a great way to put it, even though you're kind of joking.
Yeah.
But, you know, getting back to the review itself, I think that like having the unbylined sort of like descriptive main body is a little disappointing, though I understand what the context of, you know, Game Informer and why it was the way it was. I actually really appreciate, though, that it kicks off with some historical context for James Bond's creator, Ian Fleming, and talks and connects the game with books and film and literature and culture in a way that I don't think a lot of these gaming magazines were doing at the time. And I really like the way that it frames discussion of the game. So I give it, you know, a lot of points and props for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that too. And we get that when you have space to do a comprehensive overview without getting too deep into the weeds, you know, specifically with opinion, then yeah, that's great to sit here and go like 1953, Bond's come alive in 18 movies featuring 5 different actors. I'd love to go Google like what that count is up to now, because I think this was the first one with Pierce Brosnan, right? And he made like 3-4 more. Yeah. So yeah, overall the overall breakdown is really good. And, you know, they talk about the weapons options, and the sniper scope gets a mention both here and in a couple of the capsule reviews, right? Like having that differentiation in weaponry, and like not just differentiation in weaponry from weapon to weapon, but also from other games, I think is important. I think that's one of the things that really made a first-person shooter at the time stand out was, okay, what is your arsenal available to you?
Yeah.
How many of them are useful? And then are you doing anything with them that is different than what Doom is doing, right? Or what Doom has done, or what other games have done? And does that back up the concept of what you've got, right? And so GoldenEye, it makes absolute sense that James Bond has a pistol and also has a sniper scope,
right? Yeah.
Right.
And I think like what I really liked about it was it didn't just like, your weapons didn't just scale up in power like Doom, right? They each served a purpose. And even like it's one of the few games outside of like Halo where like the pistol with an added silencer was like one of the best weapons in the game. Yes. It wasn't just a throwaway that you wanted to ditch immediately like in Doom. It served a really strong purpose, and it was great in multiplayer. You know, like you could get those headshots with the silencer, and like the fact that you could upgrade the pistol with the silencer, like changed the way that you could approach combat situations in the campaign or in multiplayer. And that level, again, of coming back to like customization and agency within the experience was a big part of what made GoldenEye compelling. And helped it separate from other first-person shooters at the time that were just about like high octane, like roller coaster, like, you know, stepping on the gas style gameplay.
Yeah, and Pauls gets into that. If this game took any longer to make, I might have forgotten it was even based on a James Bond flick. To give this game credit, it's one of the best film-based concepts because it follows the plot of the film closely. No big bosses or crazy enemies, just tons of cool weapons, nifty gadgets, and a license to kill. So, you know, that's, and oh yeah, for the most part, the missions are fairly straightforward, but there are times when an itchy trigger finger got me into trouble, meaning I'd have to start over, and that's a pain with the absence of a run button. They did mention the absence of a run button in a couple other reviews too, but I like, so it gives you that, you know, not stealth necessarily, but like, hey, you got to be careful which enemies you aggro, how and when, right? Which is something that we're starting to see, and we'll see more in like Half-Life and stuff as the genre begins to evolve, where, okay, you're walking into a room and it's fire versus fire, right? Like how much firepower do you have? Do you have all the right weapon? You know, how good are you at clicking on heads? That kind of stuff. It's like, well, okay, there's more to it than that, and GoldenEye reflects that. And so that is cool, that is both of the game, that it's included in the game. And it is, you know, a movie tie-in. That's something that has a terrible track record in gaming history. Like, I don't think there's anything that game journalists, especially in 1997, were more primed to dislike than a movie tie-in game that attempts to retell the story of the movie.
Yeah.
especially.
Absolutely.
Right? And you
And
go,
like,
okay, well, this is this, and they made a great game, and it's also a pretty faithful retelling of the James Bond movie, but
yeah.
it doesn't even matter because you could reskin it as something else. It'd still be a fun game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the way that it's tying narrative into first person shooters at the time, it was, notable as well, right? We were, Half-Life was the one that's like really given credit, but I do think that GoldenEye was attempting to do something by like adapting the movie in this way that is worth pointing out. Before we move on and score and review the review, I just want to give like a shout out to these margins, like this padding on these little mini capsule reviews. There is like, so if you're watching the stream or the VOD afterwards, if you're listening, just know that there is no padding. Like this text is going right up to the edge of the box, and it's pretty funny. Love it. Love some of that old school magazine design. But Ty, what do you think? Are we ready to review the review?
Yeah, I think we are.
GoldenEye?
And obviously there's a lot to consider here because you have the byline-less main body. You have 3 different capsule reviews, each with their own 5 category scores and overall, and then a bottom line overall. What's funny is their 3 takes are quite similar, right? And their scores are also very similar. There's not a big spread in either their category to category. Now, Paul's goes from an 8.75 in graphics to a 6 in sound, which is easily the lowest anybody gave in any category. Yeah. More than a full point lower than anybody gave in any other category.
Which is wild because I think the sound design is really good and the music is so good. But in any case.
Oh, I think with all the character dialogue, this game desperately needs voiceovers.
So knocking it for not having voice acting. That's, I don't know.
In an N64 game? Was there a lot of voiceovers in N64 games?
No,
I don't think there were.
Cartridge space was.
Yeah, I don't
limited.
think they had the space for digital voices.
Or Toadstool, Princess Toadstool, was she still Toadstool at that time? Did sort of talk in Mario 64.
Yeah, kind of.
But that's probably also a dig at the cartridge format, right? Like, because we were starting to get a little bit more, like Metal Gear Solid was right around the corner, and it was full of amazing voice acting. So, maybe that is a little bit of a dig at the format.
Yeah,
but
for as a review, I like this a lot. I think this is really comprehensive. I'm trying to put aside my bias towards, see, you guys, GoldenEye was not like a 10 out of 10 thing. It was like a pretty good thing that happened to directly press on a nerve most gamers had never even stimulated before at this time, unless they happened to own a PC and happened to have friends who also had PCs or happened to be online or whatever, right? So I'm actually going to give this review 9.2 proximity mines.
Wow, 9.2 proximity mines. Incredible. I'm going to go, I need to go lower on this, I think.
Sure.
I'll be honest, this conversation has helped me appreciate GoldenEye a little bit more than I did previously. I like the fact that they didn't they gave this respectably high scores, but weren't slobbering all over it. 8.5 out of 10 for GoldenEye. Seems probably a pretty fair score. I don't really like the format too much. I don't like how much of a black box it is. Or the fact that they missed talking about multiplayer. And missed the fact that multiplayer was going to be so important to this experience and to the game's legacy. But I do like the way that it opens it with sort of a non sequitur about James Bond and its cultural impact. So I'm not, I think it's okay. I'm going to go lower than you though. I'm going to go 7 shaken not stirred martinis out of 10. Yeah.
Nice. I mean, that might be the biggest spread between our two reviews of any game ever, or any review ever, I should say. Yeah, that's fascinating. And you're absolutely right. Multiplayer should have gotten more love here, and they should have been more aware that that was going to be the big draw of this, right? There is the weird Turok fixation, I guess. But yeah, overall, yeah, the score is coming out so close and then not having an explanation. Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty good spread, pretty good, interesting way to dig into it. And I think we have meat for further discussion either in the chat if you're a FunFactor Ultra supporter and watching this live in real time. That Tempest Strife in the chat actually does mention the last 2 games scored low because of removing multiplayer. We talked about this, right?
Yeah.
The Doom port to Saturn.
Yeah.
And then this review skips talking about multiplayer almost completely when
and
that's
it's there and it's
also
like,
the whole draw of it.
Yeah. That is pretty funny. And it does sort of show like context. I think like it says so much about the context reviewers, especially way back when, like they didn't have Discords. Now, if I get review key, I also get access to a Discord where other press people are playing the game, right? So I can hang out with them and talk to them about it. Way back then, it's like they were playing, and if their like little group of staff wasn't into multiplayer, then that wouldn't impact or factor into their experiences, which is interesting too, right? And so it's hard to spot those sorts of things. Interesting stuff.
Interesting stuff. All right, well, what do you think? Did either of us get it right? Leave a review at Apple Podcasts. Post it as a comment at YouTube. We will read the best ones on air. And hey, go ahead and pass this show around to all your friends like it's 3rd grade and we're on the playground. Shout us out on Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok at FunFactor Pod. Special thanks to Millennium Falck for all our amazing original music. Check out his work and Windows 95 themed website at millenniumfalck.com. Unlike the old magazines, you won't have to wait a whole month for your next installment. We drop new episodes every 2 weeks. So go to funfactorpod.com, follow our show on your podcatcher of choice, and please consider becoming a member of FunFactor Ultra, our premium tiers that unlock ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, and the members-only channels of our Discord where you get the link to watch us record these shows live. Just go to funfactorpod.com. I promise you cannot miss the sign-up widget on our homepage. If you do, you and we will have a maximum score in FunFactor. Content. 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 Aidan, bear with me 2 seconds. I'm going to grab another pop right here. I figure this would be a clean spot to have a cut.
Easy cut.
If you can vamp for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, chat. We got Game Informer number 53, and as you can see, it is the Final Fantasy VII issue with a pretty slick cover. Like reusing assets, obviously. You have that kind of iconic Shinra Midgar picture in the background, but then, you know, like the dramatic Cloud model at the front, Aerith right behind him. But we're actually not going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII today. Might save that for something later. But this is a pretty banger issue, and I'm excited to get into it as Ty returns here.
What are we getting into?
Game Informer issue number 53.
Yes.
All right. We're here. We're live.
Cool.
I'm going to share this. I'm going to share this on the server. Yeah.
Fully ready for it to get in and be like, we can't hear Ty. Like, oh my God. Content.
We just did the pre-show, let's say, which was troubleshooting audio issues for 45 minutes.
Hey, Ty, it's September 1997. What would you guess is the, quote, hottest selling game on any platform in history?
September 97? It's gotta be Final Fantasy VII, right?
What if I told you that, according to Nintendo, it was Star Fox 64?
On any Nintendo platform in history?
On, quote, any platform in history.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I'm sorry, Nintendo.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment, but first, how can we claim FunFactor is the hottest selling podcast on any platform in history? What's the angle? We can find it, right?
Yeah, I think we just have to ask Nintendo. Well,
yeah,
like,
exactly. Can Nintendo declare us the hottest selling, hottest downloaded podcast on any platform in history? I think they can.
I think they can, and everyone should believe them.
It's true. Nintendo never lies.
Content